So I have had my Nintendo Switch 2 since my midnight launch over at Best Buy, and overall, I have been thoroughly enjoying my time with this system. It's honestly exactly what I wanted from a Nintendo Switch successor. It is a beefier, better looking, better performing Nintendo Switch. Games look and run better. There are quality of life improvements. There's an improved eShop where it actually works and functions and moves at a brisk pace. There's some new things added, such as mouse control. There are improvements over the Nintendo Switch 1 with the JoyCons being magnetic now. And of course, games actually look and run a lot better. And there are things like 120 hertz performance modes. There is, of course, HDR support, VRR support, 4K. Like, it's definitely a much better Nintendo Switch system. But in saying all that, there are some things I don't like about it. And in today's video, I want to talk about a few of the things that I've noticed with my time with the system that I'm not too fond of. Some of these I think are things that can be addressed in the future. Some of them, I don't know, might have to do some sort of revision. I'm not someone who shies away from talking about things I don't like alongside of things I do like. So if that kind of makes you upset, you probably don't want to watch this video, Nintendo fanboy. Anyways, let's hop into it. Looking for a Nintendo Switch 2 carrying case with an awesome upgrade I haven't seen before? Well, Belkin's charging case takes a simple idea and makes it awesome. At first, it looks like a standard high-quality carrying case with dual zippers and a handle. When you open it up, you have a storage net to hold various items, a card slot to store your physical games, but lifting up that flap is the surprise. This carrying case actually has a 10K rechargeable battery in it to allow you to not only protect your device from the elements when taking it outside, but will also allow you to charge or keep your system charged, prolonging how long you can play for on the go. Check out the link in the description box down below to get your charging case from Belkin today. And a huge thank you to Belkin for sponsoring today's video. The first thing I want to talk about is Nintendo Switch 2 online game chat, because honestly, this works way better than it has any right to work. Now, yes, if you're sharing your screen, it is like 15 frames per second, and it's not a very good experience as far as if you're trying to like screen watch or something. If somebody is just standing still, okay, you know, you kind of get the gist of what they're doing when you're watching their screen, but it's definitely something where it's kind of like, did you really need to add this? Was it worth adding it into the system? Because it has to be somewhat taxing on some of the architecture of the system to be sharing multiple screens at once. But the voice chat portion, which is what I really care about, is actually very, very well done. You don't need a headset. You don't need anything. It just works. You could be on the other side of the room. I've been like 25, 30 feet away from my Switch 2, and it still picks up my voice perfectly. And I don't need a headset. I don't need anything. There's background noise canceling as well. It just works. And it works really freaking good. And I'm very, very impressed with it. But there's one thing that I think needs to be updated via a firmware update, and that involves kind of how you set up a room and how people join a room. Now, it's very easy to set up a room. You hit the C button, you either create a chat or you join a chat. When you create a chat, you can then choose who you want to be in your chat room, and then the chat room is made. People can come and go as they please. As the host, you can actually leave the room, and the other people in there will still be in the room until they decide to close it out. And I think it works very, very well. But there's one major problem with it, and that is, once you create a room and you're in that room, you can't add in other people. So like, say your friend gets online, you know, Jimmy, and you're like, oh, I want to add Jimmy to the call. And so if you want to add Jimmy to the call, you actually have to close out the room. Everyone that's in there, you have to leave the chat you're in. Everyone who's in there has to leave the chat they're in. And then you have to make a new room just to add Jimmy. Like, why can't I add Jimmy into the room that I'm already in? Like, it would be much, much more convenient. And this seems like kind of a bit of an oversight and something that Nintendo could easily fix, because you can have up to like 12 people in voice chat at once and 4 people that are doing like screen sharing all at once. So for me, it's like, just add in the ability to add people into the room at your leisure, and I think it would make for a much, much better experience. It works great, but this is definitely something that I noticed as a bit of a problem with game chat. The next thing is with virtual game key cards, and I'm not even quite sure I have a solution to fix this problem, but I'll try to kind of spitball something here. I don't hate game key cards. I think they're fine. You know, they serve a purpose. Obviously, if you're only offering one cartridge size because you're Nintendo, that being a 64 gigabyte cartridge, it doesn't make sense to put really small games on there that are discount titles because of the fact that you're going to have to charge more money as a publisher of the game. And of course, a lot of games are bigger than 64 gigabytes, so it also doesn't make sense to try to put it on a game or a normal cartridge in the first place. So what do? You do a game key card. Now, the way a game key card works is you pop it into your Nintendo Switch, you connect to an online server, and then the game downloads onto your Nintendo Switch. Once it's done downloading, you are off to the races. But you do have to have the game key card in your Nintendo Switch to play the game key card game, even though the game is already downloaded on your system. Now, I kind of get that because obviously, you know, you could share one game key card with like 20 people and then they could just download it and give you the game key card back, and then they would have it on their system. So that would be a problematic thing. But if I'm having to access a server anyways to download the game onto my Nintendo Switch 2, that means I have access to internet. So if that is the case, why don't they do something where it's like Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, or just the online portion of the retro games on the system where you have to log in every 7 days in order to access it? Like, if I have the game key card put into my Switch 2 system, I download the game, you could check it once a week to make sure that I have the game key card still, so that way I don't have to put the game key card into the Switch every time I want to play that game. It just seems like there is a way to kind of do something with that. I do get, you know, the resale value portion of it, the sharing portion of it, so you can't be too restrictive of it because, you know, essentially you could just sell a game key cartridge that is linked to a Nintendo Switch 2 system, and then the person buying it wouldn't have access to the information on the game key card. But you could even do something like where you put in the game key card and it asks you if you want to make this the main system. So then the person who had it before you, then they don't have access to the game anymore via the server if you were to do some sort of thing where you don't need the game key card in the cartridge slot. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing things, but I do feel like there is some sort of way that they could come up with something, because of the fact that, like, the game key card, it's kind of pointless. It's more so just for physical collectors and people who might want to resell the game down the road. If the game is already downloaded onto the system, like, who cares? Do you have any ideas, though? Because I feel like there is some sort of solution Nintendo could do for this. Let me know in the comments down below. And the final thing is something that cannot be fixed via a firmware update, and I feel is a major oversight. This is actually something that does genuinely bother me, and that has to do with the JoyCons. Now, I like the JoyCons. I think they're fun. I think they're fine. I like that these feel a bit beefier. You know, I like that I could turn it sideways and use a mouse. Like, that's super cool. I like the new colors. I like the magnetic rails. That's great. But here's the problem with the JoyCons. If you're playing the Switch 2 in handheld mode, you're holding it like this. You see how my hand is? I'll get a little cut in there. And when you look at the back of a Joy-Con, it is completely smooth. Like, completely smooth. It doesn't contour. Like, it contours a little bit to your hand, but it is completely smooth. It is a circular kind of shape, and it's just not super comfortable. And I feel like this is something they could have done. Just put a texture on the back of this so you have a bit more grip when you're playing the system in handheld mode. It essentially forces you to have to go out and buy like various Switch accessories, such as like this D brand thing I have. Like, look at this D brand thing that they sent me to check out. Like, this is so much better. It fully contours to your hand. It has a grip on it, and it feels so much more comfortable than just this. How it is in and of itself. Like, your hands start to get fatigued, and with the lack of a grip, they also, you know, if your hands get sweaty, like, bro, my hands get sweaty. I sweat all the time. I probably have some sort of glandular issue or something like that. But like, you can see a little bit of remnants of sweat on there. Like, this gets very slick very fast, and it's just weird that Nintendo, at the very least, they didn't do some sort of grip on the back of here. Like, every controller that you have has a bit of a grip to it to alleviate, you know, it slipping out of your hands. But for whatever reason, with the Joy-Cons, they didn't do anything with that. They kept it the exact same shape and everything with it and didn't really add any sort of grip to it. And I feel like that is a huge missed opportunity. Thankfully, there are third-party companies who do have things like various grips, so I highly recommend buying these because I don't think this is something Nintendo's ever going to fix, and it's kind of a shame. All right, so those are my problems with the Nintendo Switch 2 as far as things I have noticed thus far. Like I said, these aren't like the end of the world. These are, you know, kind of nitpicky things, but I do think there are things that need to be addressed in the future to make for a better gaming experience on the system because we all want things to get better. Let me know what you think of this stuff in the comment section down below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you have any ideas for the game key card situation that would kind of alleviate you having to put the game key card in every time to play a game that you've already had downloaded? We'll just download the digital version of the game instead off the eShop. Yeah, no shit, but I already bought the game key card. It's already here, so I have to do something with it. Jeez. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.